For today's literacy task, you will find in your week 4 pack this Pobble writing challenge. On the Pobble writing challenge, down the right hand side here, you'll notice there's a story starter, and it'll be the exact same for everybody this week, so we all have that base to begin with. The story itself is based around this picture, and that's what Pobble does. They take a picture and then they create a little story starter then for children to carry on. So from looking at the picture here, we can see that there's some ice here. You can see that there's shards of ice, some bits have broken off. There appears to be like a peak or an ice mound here, and at the top of it, it looks like a little building for now. If I look out to sea, I can see there's a little plant here. And then just out there in the distance, it looks as though there's another house for now. So our challenge today will be to carry on the story based on the story starter that we are given. You'll notice in your sheet I put down the WILF what I'm looking for. So I'm looking to see in your writing if you can include things like adjectives. So that'll add some description to our writing. I put down adverbs there, so words that describe how a verb is being completed. I put down verbs here, so our action words as well, and we can see, can you include some of them? And then a little bit of recap on our skills for the last 2 weeks. I've asked you, can you include some similes and metaphors in your writing? And hopefully by now you've got a little bit of a better understanding of what those two different things are. So, I'm just going to open up this window. And you'll notice here at the top, this paragraph is the story starter that you have been given. So I'm just going to take a little read through it for now. And once I've done that, then I'll carry on to the piece in red. So, it was winter. The thunder rumbling overhead seemed to taunt the young girl as she watched in horror while half of her home drifted away across the merciless, half-frozen sea. She had awoken minutes earlier, disturbed from her sleep by the most appalling noise. It sounded as if a tree were being torn apart by giants, as if the gods above were screaming at each other in a wild rage. She thought it was the end of the world. Perhaps it was, for her anyway. In only her pyjamas, she stood on the edge of her ruined home, her toes dangling over the edge of the splintered floor, shivering in the harsh wind as it seemed to touch her skin like the kiss of some icy demon. She screamed at the top of her voice in despair and frustration, almost pleading with her frost-drenched surroundings to bring them back to her. She could see them. They were waving and shouting to her in return. In front of her, she could see the giant, drifting shards of ice, their edges sharp like samurai swords. They knocked into each other as they were swept by the tide, reminding her of some cruel jigsaw that couldn't be solved. She knew she could not reach them. So that's the story starter that everybody has been given. And you'll notice in red here, and these little questions in red are also found at the bottom of the story starter on your page. It asks you, can you continue the story of the girl and her home that had broken in two? Who was it that she was waving to? And what had caused the ice to break? Would she manage to reunite with the people drifting away? So this is where your creative side can come out, because you can lead this story on from here as you like. So, once again, I put down the WILF, what I'm looking for. If I'm going to carry this on, I still have to remember or be mindful of the fact that I need to include adjectives, adverbs, verbs, but also similes and metaphors. And again, a little reminder, similes often use like or as. Metaphors can use words like is or was. So just keep that in mind as well. But ultimately, we're trying to see, can we answer these questions in red there that I've just highlighted as the story progresses. So here's one I have created myself. You'll notice there's some words that I have coloured in, and I'll come back to that in a little minute, but I'm just going to read on down my story for now. So imagine we've reached the end of the story starter, and we're taking it up from here. Frantically the girl screamed, hoping, crying, and yearning for the return of her brother and sister. The little boy and girl were scrambling like prisoners captured by pirates at sea. They ran to the edge of their crumbling house. The house was a bomb site. Floorboards ripped in two, Walls cracked and fractured, with furniture scattered all over the place, like a party popper had just erupted. They said that global warming was affecting the ice caps we lived on, but we never thought it would happen so soon. Dad the Brain was always scheming how we could survive, where we could move to next, how thick the ice was, and what food we could capture and harvest. I turned around to see even he was dumbfounded, watching his dear sweet Betty and Mark drift off like smoke in the wind. He was dejected. He had no ideas. Mum was wailing. She was inconsolable. Her two little babies were drifting off to sea. They grew smaller and smaller till they were just a dot in the distance. I felt a rush of blood pump through my veins, a tingle dancing across my forehead. Then suddenly it dawned on me. I knew how we would get them back. And I put down there to be continued because obviously that story has not finished. Now, if I return up to this paragraph here that I'm just highlighting at the minute, you'll notice that I had put some words in different colours, and I'm just going to go out a little bit. Brilliant. So the reason I've did that is just to show you how it matches up with the will. So if I was marking this piece of work, I'll be able to mark and see, have the children or have the boys and girls included all these different things. So really simply, frantically, the girl screamed. Word frantically is in pink here, and that is an adverb because it's describing how the girl is screaming. Then I've got a sentence that begins with three verbs, so hoping, crying, and yearning for the return of her brother and sister. I put that in green to show that they are some of the verbs, and that I have, and you'll notice also in green I put ran and crumbling house. So they are my verbs for now. So I've got adverbs, verbs. In red, just very, very simply here, I've said the little boy and girl. So that's a word that is describing the size of the boys and girls that are drifting out to sea there. So that's a very simple adjective that I've included. In yellow then, I have included some similes. So I've said the little boy and girl were scrambling like prisoners captured by pirates at sea. So I'm comparing to how the boys and girls are scrambling, running around in the house, panicking almost, to prisoners who've been captured by pirates. And also on down here, I've said the walls were cracked and fractured, with furniture scattered all over the place, like a party popper had just erupted. So if you think about any celebrations or birthday times, if you've ever had the party poppers and you pull the string, you get all of the little confetti or string coming out of it, and it can make quite a mess. So we're saying that the furniture has made quite a mess. It's scattered all over the room. In blue then, I have included a metaphor. So I've said the house was a bomb site. Now, it's not actually a bomb site. Okay, a bomb hasn't erupted in the house, but what we're trying to say is that it is that in a sense because it's such a mess now. It's been ruined. It's devastated by whatever action has occurred here. And we do know that we're saying in my story anyway that it was because the ice caps had melted that the house has ripped in two. So if I go back here to the questions in red as well, can I continue the story of the boy and the girl whose home had broken into? Well, I have done that. Who was it she was waving to? Well, I've told you that in my story anyway, their names were Betty and Mark, and it was her little brother and sister. What had caused the ice to break? In my story, I've told you that it was down to global warming, and that was the reason that the ice cap had broken. Would she manage to reunite with the people drifting away? Well, at the very, very end, I've give you a bit of a cliffhanger. So I've said down here, I felt a rush of blood pump through my veins, a tingle dancing across my forehead. Then suddenly it dawned on me. I knew how we would get them back. So I haven't actually told you if they have been reunited just yet, but it does seem like the girl in the story knows that she is going to, or she's come up with a plan to reunite her brother and sister with the rest of her family again. So best of luck for tomorrow, for today. It'll actually be for writing your story. And what I will say is, you can use some of the words that I've used in mine. So if you're struck for some ideas and you want to have a little read through mine, by all means do. But I don't want to see 29 little copies of this story. I don't want you or expect you to try and carry on the rest of my story now either. Okay, I want to see if you can take this in another direction, but a direction that is still linked to the picture. So maybe your characters have different names. Maybe it isn't a brother and sister in the house. It could be somebody else. Okay, so that's where you can get to be a little bit creative today, but be very mindful of what I have put here in the wealth, because that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Okay, boys and girls, best of luck for today, and have a great weekend after this. Just your PE lesson left, and that's you. Bye.